The CEO of a 2-year-old startup walks onto a stage and claims that 94% of Nvidia's entire workforce is using his product. Not 10%, not a pilot program, 30,000 engineers, nearly every single person the company employs, supposedly tripling their code output overnight. And Nvidia, the most watched company in the AI economy, says, "Nothing. That silences the story." Because in enterprise software, when a customer is genuinely thrilled with your product, they shout it from the rooftops. They co-author case studies. They keynote your conferences. They let you plaster their logo on your website. Nvidia's response to this extraordinary claim has been a void. No press release, no confirmation, no denial, just silence.
And the timing couldn't be more suspicious. Anisphere, the company behind Cursor, had just closed a funding round valuing them at nearly $10 billion. $10 billion for a company that forked Microsoft's free code editor and bolted AI onto it. That's the kind of valuation that needs a headline, and 30,000 Nvidia engineers tripling output is one hell of a headline. So the question isn't really whether Cursor is a good product. By most accounts, it is. The question is whether the AI coding revolution is being built on verified engineering gains or on unverifiable marketing claims designed to inflate valuations and terrify enterprise buyers into opening their wallets. It's time to understand this deeply.
Let's establish what we actually know versus what we've been told. Anisphere was founded in 2022 by a group of MIT graduates in San Francisco. Their product, Cursor, is a code editor built on a fork of Visual Studio Code. That's Microsoft's open-source editor that millions of developers already use for free. What Cursor adds is deep integration with large language models that can autocomplete code, refactor functions, generate entire modules from plain English descriptions. The product gained traction fast. Developers genuinely like it. And by early 2025, the company was claiming around $200 million in annualized recurring revenue. Then the fundraising machine kicked in, and by late 2025, they'd reportedly hit $500 million ARR with a valuation of $9 billion. That's a 20 times revenue multiple in one of the most competitive markets in software.
And that multiple only makes sense if you can tell a story about explosive, inevitable growth, which is where the customer claims come in. Anisphere says Cursor is used by engineers at half the Fortune 500. Half, that would be one of the fastest enterprise adoption curves in the history of software. Faster than Slack, faster than Zoom during the pandemic. But used by is doing enormous work in that sentence. Does it mean the company has an enterprise contract? Does it mean 3 developers on a team of 5,000 downloaded the free trial? The ambiguity is the feature, not the bug.
The architectural decision here is crucial to understand. Cursor isn't sold top-down to CIOs the way traditional enterprise software works. It spreads bottom-up. Individual developers download it, love it, and then the company eventually buys a team license. That's a powerful go-to-market motion. But it also means used at half the Fortune 500 could mean almost anything. It could mean a handful of engineers at each company tried it for a week.
Which brings us to the Nvidia claim specifically. Michael Truell, Anisphere's CEO, said 30,000 Nvidia engineers are using Cursor and committing 3 times more code. Let's sit with that number for a moment. Nvidia employs roughly 32,000 people total. That's not 32,000 engineers. That's everyone. Marketing, HR, legal, facilities, finance. The claim that 30,000 of them are software engineers using Cursor would mean essentially the entire company, minus a skeleton crew of non-technical staff, has adopted this one tool.
I hadn't thought about it that way before, but when you do the math, it borders on absurd. Even at a company as engineering-heavy as Nvidia, a significant portion of the workforce isn't writing code. They're designing chips, managing supply chains, running data centers. The 30,000 figure doesn't pass basic arithmetic.
And this is where the pattern starts to emerge. Because the claim isn't designed to withstand scrutiny from engineers who understand these numbers, it's designed to land in a tech radar headline, get picked up by venture capital newsletters, and echo through the boardrooms of companies evaluating their AI coding strategy. The audience isn't developers. The audience is buyers and investors.
Let's take the productivity claim on its own terms for a moment. 3 times more code committed. What does that actually mean? In software engineering, commits are snapshots of code changes pushed to a version control system like Git. A commit could be 10,000 lines of new functionality, or it could be fixing a typo in a comment. Measuring productivity by commit volume is like measuring a novelist's quality by word count. The software engineering research community has been fighting this battle for decades. Fred Brooks wrote about it in The Mythical Man Month back in 1975. Adding more people to a late software project makes it later, and measuring lines of code is measuring the wrong thing. 50 years later, we're still falling for the same trap, except now it's dressed up in AI marketing.
The code quality metrics show something even more concerning. When developers use AI coding assistants, studies consistently find that the volume of code increases, but the defect rate also tends to rise. 2024 study from GitClear found that code churn, the percentage of code that gets rewritten or deleted shortly after being committed, increased significantly in repositories using AI tools. More code was being written, and more of it was being thrown away.
So if Nvidia engineers are genuinely committing 3 times more code, the question isn't whether that's impressive. The question is whether 3 times more code is 3 times more value or 3 times more technical debt. And nobody, not Truel, not Anisphere, not anyone has provided data on code quality, defect rates, deployment frequency, or any of the metrics that actually matter.
Think about what this means for someone running an engineering team. Your CEO reads the headline, comes to you and says, "NVIDIA's engineers are tripling their output with this tool. Why aren't we?" You now have to explain that tripling code output isn't the same as tripling productivity, that the claim hasn't been verified, and that the metrics being used are considered junk by the research community. Good luck with that conversation when the board is watching.
The DORA metrics, deployment frequency, lead time for changes, change failure rate, time to restore service, are the closest thing we have to a gold standard for measuring engineering team performance. None of them are about code volume. They're about how quickly and reliably you can get changes into production without breaking things. A team that commits 3 times more code but deploys at the same frequency with a higher failure rate has gotten worse, not better. And when McKinsey tried to create a developer productivity framework in 2023, the backlash from the engineering community was immediate and fierce. Engineering leaders at companies like Google, Shopify, and Stripe publicly criticized it for reducing complex creative work to simplistic metrics. The fear was precisely this, that management would seize on easy-to-measure numbers and create perverse incentives. Cursor's 3x claim is that fear made manifest.
Let me push back on that for a second, though, because there's a version of this that's real. Developers genuinely report spending less time on boilerplate, less time searching Stack Overflow, less time context switching between documentation and their editor. GitHub's own data shows Copilot users accepting about 30% of suggestions and completing tasks up to 55% faster in controlled studies. Google says a quarter of new code is now AI-generated. Those are real numbers from credible sources, and they paint a picture of meaningful, if incremental, improvement.
They do. And that's precisely why the 3x claim is so corrosive. It takes a genuine, meaningful trend, AI tools making developers somewhat more productive, and inflates it into a fantastical headline that undermines the credibility of the entire category. 55% faster on specific tasks is impressive and believable. 300% more code output across 30,000 engineers is extraordinary and unverified. The gap between those two claims is the gap between engineering reality and marketing fiction.
But there's a deeper layer here that most coverage has completely missed. To understand why Nvidia might stay silent rather than deny the claim, you have to follow the money, and the money trail leads somewhere uncomfortable.
Nvidia isn't just a potential customer of AI coding tools. They're one of the largest investors in the entire AI ecosystem. Jensen Huang's company has poured billions into AI startups, cloud providers, and infrastructure companies. Their investment arm has backed CoreWeave, Lambda Labs, and dozens of other companies that form the backbone of AI infrastructure. This creates a web of mutual dependencies that makes independent validation nearly impossible.
From a DX perspective, the ecosystem works like this. Nvidia sells GPUs to cloud providers. Those cloud providers, some of them Nvidia funded, host the AI models that power tools like Cursor. Cursor's success drives demand for more AI compute, which means more GPU sales for Nvidia. Everyone in this chain has a financial incentive to amplify everyone else's success claims, whether or not those claims are verified.
And Nvidia's $100 billion investment commitment in AI infrastructure, announced in stages through 2024 and 2025, follows a pattern that should concern anyone looking for objective data. The companies Nvidia invests in become Nvidia customers. The companies that buy Nvidia's chips become showcase examples for Nvidia's technology. It's a circular validation machine where every participant benefits from inflating every other participant's numbers. So when Cursor's CEO claims 30,000 Nvidia engineers are tripling their output, Nvidia has no incentive to deny it. The claim makes AI tools look transformative, which makes AI compute look essential, which makes Nvidia's GPUs look indispensable. Denying the claim would undermine the narrative that justifies Nvidia's $2 trillion market cap.
That's making me reconsider the silence entirely. I initially read Nvidia's non-response as skepticism. They wouldn't confirm because the numbers weren't real. But it could just as easily be strategic ambiguity. By neither confirming nor denying, Nvidia gets the benefit of the implied endorsement without the liability of a verified claim. If the number turns out to be inflated, they never said it. If it becomes industry gospel, they benefit from the halo effect.
And there's a historical pattern here that's worth noting. In the early days of cloud computing, Amazon Web Services would regularly cite unnamed enterprise customers seeing dramatic cost savings and performance improvements. The specific numbers were rarely verified independently, but they became the basis for trillion-dollar market shifts as companies raced to migrate to the cloud. The AI coding tools market is running the same playbook, just faster and with bigger numbers.
If this pattern holds, we should expect to see more of these unverified productivity claims in the next 6 to 12 months, not fewer. Every AI startup in the coding space, Cursor, Copilot, Code Whisperer, Gemini Code Assist, needs headline metrics to justify their existence. And the companies being cited as customers have no incentive to push back, because the narrative serves their interests too.
Here's where I need to be honest about something that complicates the thesis. I've talked to developers who use Cursor, and many of them are genuinely enthusiastic, not because of marketing claims or productivity metrics, but because the tool feels different. The autocomplete is faster and more context-aware than Copilot. The natural language interface for refactoring is more intuitive. The tab completion of multi-line suggestions feels almost telepathic at times.
And that's the tension at the heart of this story. The marketing may be inflated, the metrics may be junk, the financial incentives may be circular, But the product is, by many accounts, genuinely good. Developers aren't stupid. They're not using Cursor because Michael Truell told them Nvidia engineers love it. They're using it because it saves them 20 minutes a day on tedious tasks, and that adds up.
There's also a legitimate argument that traditional productivity metrics simply can't capture what AI coding tools do. When a developer uses Cursor to generate a boilerplate API endpoint in 30 seconds instead of 15 minutes, they haven't just saved time. They've preserved cognitive energy for the harder problems, the architectural decisions, the edge cases, the performance optimizations that require genuine expertise. That's real value even if it doesn't show up in commit counts.
Michael Truell himself, interestingly, has warned against what he calls vibe coding, the tendency to over-rely on AI suggestions without understanding the underlying code. He's acknowledged that AI-generated code can be superficially correct but architecturally flawed, and that developers need to remain deeply engaged with what the tool produces. That's a surprisingly nuanced position for someone whose marketing relies on headline productivity numbers.
Wait, that changes things, because it means Truell is simultaneously selling a 3x productivity multiplier to investors and enterprise buyers while telling developers to be cautious about over-reliance. Those two messages can't coexist. You can't triple your code output while also carefully reviewing every AI suggestion for architectural soundness. The math doesn't work.
Unless the 3x claim is specifically about code committed, not about developer hours saved or product quality improved, in which case it might be technically true in a narrow sense. AI generates more code faster, developers commit it, while being deeply misleading about what actually matters. More code shipped, not better software delivered.
And that distinction matters enormously for the companies making purchasing decisions based on these claims. If you buy Cursor expecting your engineering team to triple their effective output, and what you actually get is 3 times more code that requires the same amount of review, testing, and debugging, you haven't gained productivity. You've gained complexity.
So, let's step back and look at what we can actually verify. Cursor reportedly generates around $500 million in annualized recurring revenue. That's real money from real customers. It tells us something concrete. A large number of developers and companies are willing to pay for this tool. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but it's also not proof of the productivity claims. Developers pay for tools that make their daily experience more pleasant, even if those tools don't dramatically increase output. A good chair doesn't make you type faster, but you'd still pay for one. The question is whether Cursor's value proposition is we make coding more enjoyable and somewhat more efficient, which is defensible, or we triple engineering output, which is extraordinary and unproven.
The maintainability question is the one that haunts me, because the real cost of software isn't writing it, it's maintaining it. Every line of AI-generated code that gets committed today becomes a line that someone has to understand, debug, and modify tomorrow. If AI tools are increasing the volume of code in production without proportionally increasing the team's understanding of that code, we're building a maintenance crisis that won't become visible for years.
What the benchmark data shows from early studies is mixed. AI-generated code tends to be functional but verbose. It follows common patterns well, but struggles with novel architectures. It's great for the 80% of code that's straightforward and potentially dangerous for the 20% that's genuinely hard. And at a company like Nvidia, where the hard 20% includes GPU drivers, CUDA kernels, and autonomous vehicle systems, the stakes of getting that wrong are enormous.
And yet, the direction of travel seems clear. Google says a quarter of new code is AI-generated. GitHub reports accelerating adoption of Copilot across enterprise customers. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and now Anisphere are all pouring billions into AI coding tools. Even if the specific claims are inflated, the underlying shift is real. The question isn't whether AI will transform software development. It's whether we'll be able to tell the difference between genuine transformation and a valuation bubble dressed up as a productivity revolution.
That's the synthesis that emerges when you hold both perspectives. Cursor is probably a good product delivering real incremental value to developers. Anisphere is probably exaggerating that value to justify a $10 billion valuation and compete against Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Nvidia is probably staying silent because the narrative serves their interests regardless of its accuracy, and the entire AI coding tools market is probably building on a foundation of unverified claims that will eventually face a reckoning.
The word probably is doing a lot of work in everything you just said. And that's precisely the problem. In an industry that prides itself on data-driven decision-making, we're making $100 billion bets on productivity claims that no one has independently verified. The engineering discipline that demands reproducible benchmarks for a database query is accepting marketing assertions for the tools that write the queries.
So what should a listener take away from this? If you are a developer evaluating AI coding tools, try them. Cursor, Copilot, Gemini Code Assist, they all offer real value for routine tasks. But be skeptical of any tool that claims to triple your output. Your experience will be more nuanced than any headline metric suggests. If you're an engineering leader being pressured by your board to adopt AI coding tools because Nvidia's engineers tripled their output, ask for the methodology. Ask which metrics were used. Ask whether code quality, defect rates, and deployment frequency improved alongside commit volume. If the answer is, we don't know, that tells you everything.
And if you're an investor or analyst evaluating companies like Anisphere, demand the same rigor you'd apply to any other enterprise software claim. A $10 billion valuation built on unverified customer testimonials is a bet on narrative, not on evidence. That bet might pay off. Cursor might genuinely become the dominant AI coding platform, but the current valuation is priced for a future that hasn't been proven. The deeper lesson here goes beyond Cursor and beyond coding tools. We're in a moment where the AI industry's incentive structures reward extraordinary claims over verified results. Every startup needs a headline number to raise the next round. Every incumbent needs an AI story to maintain their stock price. Every customer cited in those stories benefits from being associated with cutting-edge productivity gains. The circular validation machine keeps spinning, and the people who ultimately pay the price are the engineers and companies who make decisions based on numbers that were never meant to withstand scrutiny.
The system design challenge is building an AI industry where extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We're not there yet, not even close. And until we are, every headline about AI tripling or quadrupling or revolutionizing anything should come with an asterisk, unverified, self-reported, and brought to you by someone with a very large financial incentive to impress you.
That's the story we'll keep following here at Deeply. Not just what the AI industry claims, but what it can prove. Because in a world drowning in hype, the scarcest resource isn't intelligence, artificial or otherwise, it's honesty. We'll see you next time.